Truth time. When's the last time you raised your hands for a swift kick in the pants? Well, I'm the no-nonsense type friend who's going to tell you when you have food in your teeth. So let's get right to it. This is your infusion of sacred and secular, calling you higher into who God created you to be, exploring how intimately faith applies to every part of your life, and how you can live that faith every single day in the marketplace. I felt the tension of separation of church and state. I've been one of the few women at a table of men for decades, and I've stood my ground. Are you ready to do the same? These tools, resources, and interviews are meant to do just that. I'm Jan Touchberry, and it's time to share her faith at work. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I am excited about this conversation because my guest and I go way back. We go way back, so far back that I was trying to think tonight before I hit record, what's my favorite story about her? And I think it is when her then boyfriend, now husband, came to me and said, "Hey, can you help me surprise her so that I can propose?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I can."
You were very good at it too.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I pride myself in being able to keep a really great secret. So tonight I get to have a conversation with my good friend, Amarilys Henderson. She is an extraordinary artist, you guys. You're going to need to look up all her things, follow her all the places, which will be in the show notes. But not only is she an amazing artist, she has turned her art into a very legitimate business. We're going to talk about all the things that she does and where her art is popping up all over the place. But she is on Instagram and LinkedIn and she's showing all these new things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is there any place that your art is not? So anyway, Amarilys, welcome to the show. Tell everybody about you.
Thanks, Jan. I've just always been that art girl, and so I didn't really have a plan B. I think that's part of the magic. And I also was raised by a creative mom who kind of operated as a single mom for most of my upbringing. And so she went to art school, did graphic design when I was little. And so she would do her homework and I would do my homework. And
Aw.
it wasn't really my homework, but I took it very seriously. And she said that the way she puts it is that she learned how to do art, but that from me, it just came more naturally. But that doesn't amount to a hill of beans when it comes to making a business out of it. So yeah, we can talk more about that. But I would say I'm a watercolor artist first and foremost, and then that tends to work itself out in surface design, in some children's book illustration, in fabric design, and in online teaching.
Amazing. So amazing. And you're a wife and you're a mama.
Yep.
And so she is multifaceted. I think so many of the people that listen to this podcast on a regular basis can identify with being the wife, being the mom, and running a business at the same time and having to keep all the plates going in the air so nothing drops. And so I'm sure that we will get into a little bit of, I like to call it the myth of work-life balance, because I don't really think that there is a true work-life balance that you can find. But I'm just intrigued by the kind of the progression that your art has taken. So can you talk to us a little bit about going from artist to entrepreneur, being an artist? Because I would venture to say that there are a lot of people who might identify as artists, but not many of them can make a living at it.
Well, that works beautifully because one of my first jobs was with you, Jan. So Jan was my boss. And I was pretty fresh out of college. I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, majored in illustration, got engaged, or, was going to get engaged, I suppose. And mom suggested that I get a job. I thought I was doing pretty well with freelance here and there. but I definitely could not stand up on my own. And she also just was saying, you're going to get married and there's going to be all kinds of conflicts. Like, let's not make money one of them. So, uh,
A wise woman.
yeah. And so I thought, okay, well, I was looking for work, but honestly, when I started going to the church where I ended up being employed, I didn't know that you guys were looking for someone to fill a position. I did kind of see some things that I could be helpful with, but
I'm
also
sure you
saw,
did.
it's like I could see the effort; it was there, and I'm like, I think I can help out a little bit here. And so when I saw that, call out, I think you might have even reached out to me. I'm not sure how I ended up in the offices that morning, but I'm not sure you know this story, Jan, that when you were doing your interview with me, you said, well, it says here that you are familiar with these programs. And I was like, yeah, kind of like it's on the paper, right? So that's true. But I will say that I wasn't as prolific or proficient as that resume said. But you immediately were like, well, that's great because we have a problem right now that you can help us with. And we walk over to some poor, frustrated person. I'm not going to name names, in a cubicle, who had an Illustrator file that they couldn't work with. And I had touched Illustrator a handful of times, and I honestly didn't love it. And I didn't know how to solve the problem, but I figured it out. And you were like very happy with that. And I was so happy that everything worked out, because for a second there I was like, made my bed. So actually that reminds me of, or the reason why that happened in ways, I had a college professor that said, someday you're going to go to an interview and you're going to be asked, do you know this program? And you're going to say yes, even if you don't. Because guess what? You're not lying. You're just borrowing from the future. You're going to run to Barnes and Noble after your interview and get whatever it's called for dummies. And you're going to spend some hours figuring it out so that you're ready for the prospective job. And I couldn't believe that I actually took him up on that.
That's so funny. Oh, that's
So
a great
yeah, I
story.
worked as a graphic designer for the church and for a local magazine publisher, and did mostly ads, ad design. And so working from there, then went to full time at a larger ministry at Insight for Living, and was there for a few years before we went overseas. But my transition into having my own business was a little bit stumbled upon. I think I never gave up being a freelancer. I think as an artist, you kind of expect that to never go away, but you can't really count on it as a job. You just kind of think, okay, from time to time, somebody's going to ask me to do something for, their baby, or for, I need a logo or whatever. But it wasn't until actually living overseas, when we lived in China, that I started painting again, because I went through some burnout and just kind of went through this phase of just not really wanting to create, because I felt like everything's been done. What am I going to do that's, worthwhile? I see so many other people doing some awesome things, and yet becoming a mom really broke me to trying to grasp at who I was again. And so I reached for my brushes and what little time I had, which was my devotion time, kind of just all mushed into one. And I started sharing them. Instagram was like brand new at the time. And a friend of mine actually illegally put me on there, and then told me my password. And I started sharing just the little things that I would do. And so I would just start reiterating, or I don't know, illustrating scripture the way that I kind of thought it should jump out. And little did I know that that was already like such a big thing here in the States. To me, I thought I was like the only one out there doing it. But when people started asking for prints, then I had to start figuring that out. So before, I was doing some freelance, and I would just kind of take each person as, you know, whatever they needed and just kind of figure it out from there. But I wouldn't have called that a business. I would say that when I went from creating prints and selling them on Etsy, that my mom would print here in the States and ship for me, when that turned into a business was when, you know, it's funny, it's kind of this, it's not about having a business name or some paperwork that made me feel like now this is a business. It was when I got really gritty and had a, you know, one of those ledger notebooks out, and I figured out, as a young family, when we moved back to the States especially, how much I needed to make every month to help support the family.
Yeah.
And that number was $700. I had to make $700 a month. And at the time, that felt like so daunting. And yet I could, you know, I could kind of think, well, maybe this much from that and this much from that. And I started piecing things together. And what I found is that you work with what you got, but then you start sowing seeds for the next thing, and you start layering those in until you have multiple streams of income, and you can start shedding the things that you disdain or you're overworked by.
Right.
But that's when I would say that started. And so I went from prints to then looking into licensing, which is what I call, or when I talk about surface design, it's basically your art on stuff. And so I looked into, how can I get in touch with companies to use my art on their stuff? And then I don't have to print and fulfill it and make it happen. I get a royalty from those sales.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Your art is on quite a bit of stuff these days. Is the latest thing the fabric?
That's the biggest thing. So I thought that
Biggest thing. Okay.
Moda Fabrics, it's a quilting fabric company. I thought that they were a good client, but they've kind of become a department. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah. It's not the first fabric company that I've licensed with. Before them, I was with Paintbrush Studios. But to put it into context, these are always released in a collection, particularly with quilting, because you've got all these fabrics that you want to put together and make them go
Right.
together. And so with Paintbrush Studios and a lot of online quilt sellers, quilt fabric sellers, they will have maybe 7 designs, half a dozen to a dozen designs within a collection. At Moda, I'm doing 25 to 30 per collection. And so that's 2 to 3 times a year so far in the last couple of years. And so that'll take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. And I saw that you have some china. I need to get my hands on that because it's stunning.
Yeah, thanks. That was with Mikasa, which is so fun to say. And I have, you know,
Right?
at our house, we have a few of those pieces. And I don't know that it's China. I think it's just, you know,
Well,
tableware.
sure,
But,
tableware, but it's beautiful. I mean,
but
Mikasa sells china, right? I mean,
yeah.
you could
Oh, yeah.
consider
Oh,
it china. If
yeah.
it's tableware, it's really fancy tableware, y'all.
Yeah. And my boys are like scared to touch it. We still use it sometimes, but like we had people over, we use the bowl, and when we wash it, like really careful. But it's from a collection called Drift, and it has like some cacti, and then they revamped it 2 years later with a cheetah and more of like this like animal print on it, which
Oh,
sounds
wow.
bizarre, cacti and cheetah, but it works.
I don't think I've seen that one. I'm gonna have to look that up. So, what is this is random question, not business related, but what's your favorite thing that you've done?
Well, it's hard to not say the latest thing that I've done
Hmm.
because things that I work on kind of reach some sort of an expiration. And I don't know, I guess you just get more critical about your work.
Sure.
But um, in terms of, I guess I just feel like I could evaluate those differently. Like something that'll strum my heart is pieces that I did as a new mom. They just have a
Mm.
certain magic to them.
Hmm.
Um, Coolest client, I would say the tabletop is the greeting cards with papyrus are always fun because they have so many embellishments.
Hmm.
And sometimes, I mean, I don't get to see them until they're out. Different companies work differently. When I've done greeting cards with Trader Joe's, I see, I know exactly what I'm going to get, and I get 25 samples, and that's not necessarily the case with most companies. And so with papyrus, I get to go to the store, I guess, and be really excited when I do find them.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
fun.
Strange or maybe like unexpected is also fun in terms of different surfaces. Candy wrappers, that was something kind of unexpected. I didn't imagine that they wanted my Wiseman on candy wrappers. It's fun to see. I used to go to trade shows, and this is how I would get some of those clients that you you wouldn't see coming
Hmm.
because it's like having a craft fair booth and you just don't know who's walking by, and those are different companies. And so, your art may end up on some shoes or on pencils, and you just don't know.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I think I probably am going to go down in your book of clients as the one who had the biggest art piece that you've ever done. Do you remember that? The
Yeah, yeah.
Easter, we took a piece of her art and she designed, I think it was a bookmark for us, and then we blew it up large scale and it was on the entire back wall of our worship center. It was probably 20 feet high by probably 15 feet wide or something like that. It was huge and it was beautiful and it's still one of my favorite Easters.
It it is one of my favorite pieces. I remember doing that and thinking, how is this? And I think you had your own apprehensions, like, is this gonna look good when we blow
Uh-huh.
it up 1,000%?
Yeah.
uh, but I was kind of like, it is what it is. This is as big as I can go, and I've got to be able
Yeah.
to scan it and work with it in Photoshop. So I wish I could have seen that in person. The pictures looked great. Now
Yeah, it was
back up
incredible.
and look at them. So if you find them, you let me know.
Okay,
Who
I
gets
will. I will. I
first?
will. So I want to segue the conversation a little bit and still in the business realm, but you are an artist and yet you run a business, and so there's a lot of back end stuff. How did you manage all of that? Like, how did you learn all the things that you needed to learn to actually run a business? Because I hear that over and over again in my own business. I have people coming to me that are entrepreneurs that are like, I don't have time to do this. I don't have the desire to do this. I don't know how to do this. And so, what wisdom can you give somebody who's in that place?
Uh, what a job that I had before I started with you. Um, well, had managers, owners who didn't know how I did my job. And that experience actually made me think, when I have my business, I want to at least know the ins and outs of what needs to be done and how it's done, even if I'm not good at it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I find something that I need to get done, or I don't want to say get good at, but let's say it's, bookkeeping or tech, which is constantly changing.
Right?
I I figure I need to navigate this at least enough to know how to do it. I'll do it badly. Maybe I'll, waste months on a subscription of some tech, snippet that I don't really need, but I'm going to do it. And then, when I'm drowning, then I can look for help if
Right.
I'm able to
Yeah.
financially, right? And so that would be it's hard to say that. I mean, it's hard to say that out loud, that that's my advice. Like, you you need to know who you're, what you're paying somebody to do.
Mm,
So I think the temptation is to quickly outsource. And it is, I see outsourcing as a level that you can get to. And even when you're there, then I mean, it just means that you need to make more money to help pay for that person. And and that's a tough lesson too. It's not any easier. So when there's stuff that's overwhelming, but you, because there are so many hats that you have to wear,
right.
really focusing on one at a time. You cannot become a business person overnight. And
Mm,
any business person I know is reading at least a book a month on business, and they're already great at it. So,
yep.
I need to learn some things for sure. And so I'll just focus on one thing. When it comes to, let's say, starting a business, the big rocks are what? Like your brand identity and
Mhm.
basic bookkeeping. And I would say for me, something that's been important is learning how to do good contracts, setting
Yeah.
expectations in that workflow. So those are three big things. But if, whether you're an artist or not, I'm an artist, so I can only look at this experience. When I looked at, okay, what do I really need right now? Well, what I really need right now is a website.
Mhm.
I teach online, and so I guide some other, mostly women, go from art to design, and they will spend a long time not having a website, not having a place to point somebody to. How is
Right.
anybody going to know what you have if you don't have a store? That's your shop, that's your inventory. And so I don't care if it looks amazing or has all the bells and whistles or has 5, 7, 12 pages. You really just need one page, maybe three, maybe like contact me, my
Mhm.
portfolio, and here's a landing page, of like, boom, this is me. And just have that. I mean, we need to just stop fretting about all the things that we aren't, and be able to focus on what's the one small thing I can do that's going to move things forward. Uh,
That's good.
and
That's really
so
good.
once you have like your one page website, you're going to be so damn proud of that, that you're going to
It's
have
so true.
confidence to do the next thing.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like, and in fact, I got a text today. Shout out to my friend Melissa. She texted me today because we've been working on her website and I designed it, but she is learning how to navigate and make changes in it.
Hmm.
And she texted me just today and she said, "I'm learning." And she sent me a screenshot and she says, "Be proud, be very proud."
Yeah.
And so it's so true. When you learn something that is not in your wheelhouse, that's not natural for you, it is such a confidence booster that, and you
Mhm.
don't have to be proficient at it. But just the fact that she can update her own website and feel like it does the job that it's supposed to do, and she's not having to tap me on the shoulder all the time for updates, that is huge. And that happens in so many different areas of our business as we grow and progress and learn new things. And yeah, be proud. Be proud,
Well, and
people, when you
I
learn
think that
things.
what's wearing you down is that exhaustion of, I don't know how to fix this, I don't know how to do this. But what's
Hmm.
really wearing you down is that you're not doing it. That
Oh, that's good.
the lack of, like, keeping that promise to yourself. Like, you tell yourself, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it. And then you feel awful because you're not keeping that promise to
Yeah.
yourself. You think, but you want to blame the thing. Like,
Mm,
it's the web design. I hate doing that thing.
yep.
But you're just redirecting your anger towards that. Like, you're not actually frustrated with, I don't know, Zapier or QuickBooks or whatever. It is frustrating, but it can't cut you that deep. Like, what's cutting you deep
Right, yeah.
is you are feeling like you're failing yourself and getting in your own
Mm.
way.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. That was a mic drop moment right there, friends. Back 15, as Melissa says, back 15, back 15. Listen to that again, because that was really good. Um, so let's talk work life not balance for a minute, because I think that is a universal issue. I think anybody who has a family, and even if you don't have kids, you have
Mhm.
other obligations. You have a fur baby, you have parental units, you have, I
Mhm.
mean, there's some other obligations that you have to balance. So it's life balance and work balance.
Mm.
And how do you navigate that? Because your boys are teenagers now,
Yep. Yeah,
which
really.
usually means that they're self-sufficient, but it comes with its own set of interesting navigation possibilities. But even when they're little, I mean, so there's phases that you go through as a mom
Mhm.
and a business owner. And so talk to me about how you've navigated that kind of over the years.
Mhm. Well, so we have two boys that are now 13 and 14, a year and a half apart, one biological, one adopted. And so they haven't been together all, all their life. So when I think of really little, I just had the one. Then came the second one, which was kind of a tornado. But at that point, it's pretty clear cut when you can work, right? Nap
Right.
time, after bedtime, if you still have it. And I remember thinking, you know what? My work hours are 10 to 12 a.m. and p.m. Those were
Mm-hmm.
my work hours.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, having less time helped to sharpen what I did, like my productivity,
Mm-hmm.
because all the rest of the time I'm thinking, what do I really need to do? And you knew exactly what you needed to work on when you had that precious time.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And of course, having the support of my husband is huge because, yeah, when you don't have that, um, it's an uphill battle, and you feel like you're cheating on
Mm.
your loved one or your little kids or whatever. There's a lot of
Yeah.
guilt that you have to fight through. Obviously, when they were older, working around school hours and being the one at home means I kind of take care of like everything.
Yes.
uh, I got out of doing the laundry because I wasn't doing it up to snuff, which I am okay with. But finances and shopping and cooking, things like that. I would say that if I look at, I think of Einstein's the relativity of time kind of concept, where
Mhm.
if you see a like, let's say we're watching a film go slowly, you watch the carriage go by, you watch the house go by, but when it's fast, when it's spinning fast, it looks like they are all simultaneously together, right?
Mm. Mhm.
And so when we look at people on social media, or when we think they've got a great work life balance, we're looking at that sphere, that globe moving really fast. I think that's like the compilation album, the
Yeah.
greatest hits. But it's not like there's some like terrible hits. It's just that at different times, different things are going good.
Right. Yes.
And so, you know, right now, we're talking and I'm enjoying this, and I have to be grateful for this moment and not what I could be doing or where I should be over here.
Mm.
It takes a lot of intentionality without emotion, so that then when you're in the moment, you can step in with emotion and be there. So if I'm
Mm.
able to say, okay, right now or today, these are my priorities and this is what I'm going to work on. I can't feel shame or guilt about working on those things. I can enjoy them at that time. And I would say that the most practical thing that I hang on to with just being able to do all the things is to reduce the number of the things into
Mm.
what is really like, what am I going to hit the pillow tonight and think I should have done that. I should,
Mm.
you know, it's easy to do the thing that you want to do, or we avoid doing the harder thing on our list. But
Yep.
I want to hit the pillow without that feeling of uh regret that rolls over into the next day. um,
Yeah.
and
So
with the
good.
boys, I think it's taken some training, I think our parents had their ways and we had to learn to understand them. They
Mm-hmm.
see me in here. And it used to be that they thought I was working all the time, but it's just that I paint for work, and I paint for me, and I paint for Jesus, and I
There you
paint for
go.
whatever
Yep.
I'm going through. And so they would see me just kind of painting all the time, and it might not necessarily be in this room, but um, they thought I was always working, and I would have to actually tell them, like, it's okay, you can interrupt me. I'm just painting for fun. Do you want to paint for fun? Or I really want to finish this and I need so many more minutes to finish this. As long as I was able to hold that promise afterwards, it worked out okay to just kind of give them a bit of a pause button until I could.
That's awesome. So good. So good. I feel like so something that you said reminded me of one of the better books that I've read about business in the last couple of years is called The One Thing.
Mm.
And he talks about I'm gonna totally botch this is not exact. This is Jan's paraphrase, but it's basically what is the one thing that you can do right now that by doing it will basically push everything else forward.
Mm.
And you keep whittling it down, whittling it down, whittling it down until you really do have that one thing that you need to focus on. And that's what you want to make sure you get done before, like you said, put your head on the pillow that night. You want to make sure that that one thing got done because you know that it's pushing everything else forward. And then your next one thing isn't going to be as hard.
Yeah.
And it's so good. So I'll drop the link to that in the show notes too, because if you haven't read it, I highly recommend. Highly recommend. So tell me what you've got going on now, girl, because I know you're teaching, but you've got memberships that you do and you've got workshops that you do. And I heard something about an art retreat. Hello?
Yeah. You
That's a
know,
lot and fun.
they're not all at the same time.
Oh, well,
That
hallelujah.
that's that's the trick. If you're able to kind of like box and shelf, have you heard that, the box and shelf method, where you have basically a project or maybe a part of your work that you go, okay, this is the box that I'm working on, and then I'm going to put it on the shelf until then. I've had to do that with this art
That's
retreat
good.
coming up in September, which to no one else it's coming up, but to me it's coming up, right? And I want to think about it all the time. What am I going to
Yeah.
do? Where are we going to stay? Well, we know where we're going to stay, but all the details. And I have to put that up on the shelf. But it'll be my first retreat. I'll start talking about that one. We'll go to Asheville for a long weekend, Thursday to Monday in September, in late September. And it feels not heavy. It feels significant to me
Mm,
in that I don't teach about painting with my faith. And much to the, derish of many people who might be listening, but it's because the online space is just a whole other animal.
hmm
And it's I learned that I don't have to police, comments and whatever might erupt. But I also just feel like it's a lot of noise, and I want to be able to do that sort of teaching, at least begin it in person. And so
mm,
me throwing myself into a weekend of, okay, let's do watercolor devos in the morning. It's optional. You don't have to join that part. And then we'll go into just regular art and fun. But it'll probably carry over into those conversations easily, and share that part more openly. I
mm,
do that. I share openly on Instagram and on socials, but it's more of a um, show and tell rather than a form of imparting. Like, this is how you can go about
mm,
bringing your craft into your devotion time.
mm.
And so that retreat I'm calling Radiant, which is one of my favorite words, just to be fair, but it's also the name of a fabric collection that's coming out at the end of the week or the beginning of March. And it's called Radiant as well. So I'm looking forward to kind of using some of those fabrics for tote bags or something, or swag bags.
Super fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very colorful one. Um, and it has a humongous panel that's, I think, like 20 by 30 inches of 25 pieces of mine. I mean, you can make a shower curtain out of it, is kind of the size to give it some context.
Wow.
So it's a little bit of an experiment, and so it feels significant to me too for that reason, in that it's not your typical quilting collection. It is,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's something else. It's going to be fun to show. But yeah, that's the art design side. I'll have a greeting card at Trader Joe's this summer, so you'll have to look out for that one. And then there's some other things that are still out, but in terms of new stuff, that's what's new. And so my teaching online, my claim to fame was, or came through Skillshare.
Mm-hmm.
I was, and still am, one of the top teachers there. And then I created my own platform where I have a membership where I drop new lessons at the end of every week. Painting, it's called Watercolor Bold because it's about painting in a way where you can actually just open the sketchbook and go to town. I think we get really hung up with, what am I going to do? And what colors am I going to pick? And is it going to look good? And let me do some pencil sketches. And I'm really trying to encourage more timid artists to just go for it and fill that puppy up. And
That's
so
good.
after a couple of years, I started adding in this layer of watercolor build, which is more about building your portfolio through design collections from the artwork that you were creating in bold. So
That's awesome.
it's a little
Very
bit tongue twister, but I'm really cheesy like that. I like
It's
alliteration.
okay.
And
I love all your cheese. It's great. So I will make sure that all of these links where you can find Amaryllis are down in the show notes. Um, any like any other thing that's just burning on your heart that you need to like just that nothing.
no, I feel like I've done that. that. But I send out a weekly email, so you can just subscribe to the email and you
Oh, great.
get all the links of things,
Perfect.
stuff.
I think that's amazing. Great. Thank you so much for having a chat with me. I feel I feel like we've caught up just a little bit and we've gotten to share it with everybody else. They just got to listen in on our catching up after a little bit. So thank you so
Oh,
much. I really am in awe of you and your work and how the Lord has worked through you over the years. Um, my my grandkids are they have your Christmas book, and it's the coolest
oh,
thing that I can say. I used to work with her. And I mean, it's just, I think you're amazing. And I just love your little family. They're beautiful. And so thank you so much for spending some time with me and my audience today. Appreciate you.
yeah. Thank you, Jan. You were formative for me in my early 20s. Fun,
Just because I'm old.
but thank you. I enjoyed it.